Hey, welcome back to my channel, and what I'm doing today is I'm looking at why I've installed a set of triple monitors to my rig when I advertise I exclusively play in VR and what impact this has on my driving. First question, am I faster or slower? And second follow-on question from that is, if slower, how long will it take to get to the same pace as I'm in VR? As I've never in recent times, certainly in the last few years, used regular screens for racing sims. In fact, every time that I've jumped on and played without the VR headset, it's been terrible. I've been slow and I've not been able to spot braking points as well. Turning points have always been later, so I've always struggled, so I've always just gone back to the VR and used exclusively that for the last couple of years. So how am I going to decide if I'm faster? Well, I plan to run a reasonably repeatable test over 5 laps of Spa, take the results of these first using the VR headset, in this case the Oculus Quest 2, average them and also note the fastest lap. I will then immediately repeat with a triple monitor setup, so this should give a good initial kind of immediate comparison. But if I am slower, it won't account for any adaptation time and show any true potential. So I'll then look to repeat 5 laps on the triples sometime later after I feel like I've got the hang of things, or I feel like I'm up to pace and comfortable with the setup. So also, why am I going to use triples? Well, there's 2 reasons to that. Firstly, it's really tough work in VR doing endurance races, and that's the kind of racing I like doing, and you will see lots of that on this channel going forwards. I really like the challenge of strategy, and put simply, you just don't get as much info in a VR headset as you do on a triple screen, or at least I haven't found a way to do that reliably. They also get very hot and are prone to fogging up over longer races. I did 3 hours worth nearly on Indy 500 before I unceremoniously parked it in the barrier, and it started to steam up quite badly towards the end. It was getting quite frustrating. And yeah, I can use a fan and stuff, but just generally it's uncomfortable over long distances on my eyes as well. Also, I can't see my button box, any of the 30 functional buttons on a wheel, its cool LCD display or anything like that, which almost makes them pointless really. And also recently I had a really unfortunate and annoying tracking issue in a GT7 league race, which ended up in a DNF for me. So there's lots of compelling reasons there for me to partly consider the switch. Now clearly immersion is huge in VR, and it's kind of the main reason why I enjoy it. But what I've got set up here now is a 32-inch set of 1440p triples, and actually the field of view is better than VR, so it's running just shy of 180 degrees. So in a slightly darkened room you could argue it's comparable. I won't though, because it's not, but it's a pretty good experience nonetheless, and my computer also runs the triples so much better than VR. Now it's not a weak system, in fact it's a very good system, 7800X3D and a 4070 Super, but it does struggle, and sometimes I feel like I spend more time setting the VR up to each track than actually driving, which is frustrating. So being able to have lots of eye candy turn on and jump into the game more often can't be a bad thing, and more time in the wheel rather than in the settings graphics menu, that will surely improve speed. I don't think you get faster by tinkering with graphics settings, unless I'm wrong. But the second reason is that I want to do more live streaming, and for that you need the option to interact with people, and no one wants to watch you on a cam sat behind a headset unable to interact, which I think is a fairly big problem of racing VR. And despite lots of apps, research and stuff like that, I haven't found a way to make that be a seamless experience. If anyone knows anything, please point me in the right direction. So also for that to work, I need people to interact with. Thank you to those that have already subscribed and watched my content, and for those that haven't, if you are interested and keen to be involved, please do subscribe to the channel and watch this iRacing noob find his way around the world of online competitive sim racing. So this is not to say that I'm going to be doing no VR content moving forwards, far from it, just that I'll be doing VR and stuff with the triples on flat screens. Clearly if I'm not doing live streaming and want to race, I'll still be using the VR stuff, especially for shorter races, but for the longer stuff you'll likely find me on flat triple screens. I say flat, they're actually curved, but you know what I mean. So the results are in, and for some reason I did 6 laps, so it's now a 6-lap test rather than 5, but more data is good, right? So fine. That's the 6 laps I got, fastest lap being a 2:21.353, and the average of that being a 222.091, so 222.1 is our baseline to work off. Now, quite slow today, I don't know why, that's about 2 seconds off my kind of pace from the other week when I was actually racing around here. I don't think I've lost 2 seconds in pace in a week or so, so curious as to why that is. Maybe I've got the setup wrong, but either way we'll use the same car, same stuff, and it should be comparable regardless. Just oddly slow for whatever reason today. So now on to the non-VR comparison. So first off, where I was running 80 FPS on the Quest 2 or 90 on the PSVR 2, which, whilst prettier, was less reliable in terms of performance and definitely rougher on my computer to run. Well, I'm running over 150 FPS here. At the time of editing this video, I've experienced it running 120 plus FPS on a full grid on the Nordschleife, so it's got so much more headroom now, and also got lots of pleasing eye candy too, and it's just super smooth compared to VR. How does it feel like jumping from VR to flat screens? Well, weird is the answer. It felt like I was doing everything just a bit late, braking points, turning points, everything felt just a bit delayed, like I wasn't anticipating things so well. I expect it's probably down to my brain being used to seeing 2 separate images, so one for each eye, and having an element of depth perception whilst in VR, but the extra field of view from the triples is great. Like, my peripheral vision is getting much more info than the VR headsets used to give it. And I can certainly feel that the extra smoothness is going to probably benefit in the long run over the slightly choppier VR, that's for sure. I could always felt like you're running a bit of a knife edge with performance in VR, you know, having to accept slightly stuttery starts to get decent sort of fidelity and performance mid-race. Otherwise you were turning down the settings to get a smooth start, but then probably leaving plenty in the bank, so to speak, during the race. You know, you could have better graphics in the actual race, so always a bit of a toss-up between those kind of two points of the race. You know, I'm sure the guys with 4090 GPUs and stuff like that probably can get away with having the best of both worlds, but unfortunately I'm not one of them. So, onto the results of the now famous industry standard 6-lap test. Interestingly, fastest lap and overall faster average of 2:21.8. Now, the keen-eyed amongst you will probably notice that it says, well, it's about to say 8 laps on the lap timing, and that's because I binned it on my 3rd lap, so I had to reset to the pits and start again, obviously with an out lap that didn't count. So, but it's still the 6 flying laps as displayed above. Right, so you join us now 3 days later on and redoing the 6-lap challenge, and here's results for today's session. Not a massive improvement over the previous 6 laps and triple screens, so that's what, 7/100ths of a second quicker on an average, and my fastest lap was slower. Yeah, so I said earlier in the video that we would kind of establish why actually I felt like I was 2 seconds slower a lap than what I was doing previously a few weeks before when I was doing this track. And if you look back at some of the telemetry that pops up, like the brake and throttle markers, you'll notice that the brake marker just fires straight to 100% all the time. So it turns out my load cell pedals had forgotten they were load cell pedals, and kind of the slightest pressure was putting them to 100%. So yeah, that was obviously a problem. So I recalibrated them. Not sure why they lost the calibration, but they did. So I recalibrated them and did the 6 laps again, and the results are as shown here. You'll see that there's a significant difference immediately. A second quicker on the fastest lap that I achieved in all of the testing, and the average is a good 1.2 seconds quicker. So kind of frustrating that this technical issue kind of has questioned the previous results, although at least they're all consistent. They're all done on the same, we'll say, dodgy bit of kit. But you know, looking from those times there, they are absolutely comparable to what I would expect to produce regularly in VR. In fact, it's only 3/10 off my kind of all-time fastest lap, which is a 2:19.9 round here. So I think the big takeaway points are that it doesn't take long to transition to triples. You know, a couple of days and I feel like I'm perfectly comfortable on here now. And also make sure your kit is set up correctly, because that was just hemorrhaging time, and yeah, I couldn't work out why for a few days. So interesting to see how things go when I jump on online later on and race a series I've been racing for the last few nights and struggling with. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see more content, please consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.